If you have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask them. Other people probably have the same questions, but the onboarding starts here with your ranch profile. It's in the upper right-hand corner. And notice also there's always a quick help here. The quick help should be able to answer most of your questions. Just click on that in the upper right-hand corner of the dialog box, and you can drill down, hopefully as much as necessary to answer your questions. But this initial panel, we basically ask your location. We do that just to provide you with local resources for your area. That's really the only reason. We also then ask you what species you want to look at. Now, these could be ones you're looking at, already have or potentially have. They could be hypothetical as well. So any grazing species, cattle, sheep, or goats, you can click on. The grazing environment that best equates to your local environment. This question really is only significant for the carbon capture report. That's a fairly significant report for some people, especially for marketing. It tells you how much carbon your grazing animals are removing from the environment, measured in CO2e. So it's only relevant for that. So don't worry, too much if you have a hard time determining that. And then the next one is your inventory month. That's the starting point for the analysis, the 5-year forward-looking analysis from your inventory month. And that can be any time of the year. Then the units. And then when you hit save, it's going to kick you over, and you can see on the left, we're at the top of the input panels. And as you walk down, those reports become available. The first one asks you a few more questions. This user has cattle, so, cow-calf enterprise, do you have one? Yes or no? What event happens next in the reproductive calendar, calving or weaning? Do your heifers first calve as 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds? When are these calves going to be weaned? And then do you want to look at stocker enterprises? And do you want to look at, if you do want to look at them, do you want to look at acquiring stockers? And as you save these, it just kind of walks you down. Once you've inputted these first 2 boxes, we know the basic structure of your ranch, and it's going to be tailored according to what you have and what you want to look at. Let me stop right there. Any questions on any of those?
Rick has a question. If we're growing our herd by saving about 75% of available qualified heifers, if in year 2 or 3 we reach grazing capacity, how do we keep the 5-year forward-looking analysis from growing beyond our capacity? Maybe we can revisit that when we get to reports, even though that would be here in these input panels.
Yeah. Maybe that's the first question we'll get to once we get through some of these others. So yeah, the next is inventory. How many animals of each class do you have? What are your expected mortality rates? And there's a next page there also. If you have any stockers currently at the time of the inventory, you just put those in and your expected mortality rates. The next panel is reproductive statistics. If you have a breeding herd, what are your expected conception rates, expected wean percentage, expected call rates, and those are noted right there and defined in the quick help. And so you put those for the different classes of breeding cows, your H1s, H2s, or mature cows. You also put a call percentage for your bulls. So H2s, and again, it's defined right there, but it's those females that are being bred for the second time from the last event, either weaning or calving, depending on where you are in the cycle. Okay, so those are animals that are going to be bred for the second time. They're having their first calf, they're getting bred for the second time. H1s are those new breeding replacements that are getting bred for the very first time this year. And mature cows are those that are being bred for the third or more time.
And most folks aren't going to have H0s.
Yeah, you're only going to have an H0 if you have, if your heifer's first calf is 3-year-olds. And if that's the situation, then you have an extra year of development. And so those are breeding heifers that aren't going to get bred this year, but they will get bred for the first time next year.
And you can see that this input is going to be unaccessible because this account does not have H0s. So if you ever come across an input that you can't access, it's probably due to a prior setting.
The next one is management. What do you plan to do with those calves? This producer is looking to retain heifers or steers as stockers. And so what percentage of your calves do you want to do that with? And then also beyond that, the next question, what percentage of your heifer calves do you want to keep as breeding replacements?
Aubrey has a question. H0s are not calves.
Well, they're weaned calves that are going to get bred for the first time next year. That only happens if they are being bred to calve first as 3-year-olds.
Aubrey, does that make sense?
So sorry. So those are not. Is that synonymous with replacement heifers?
They're replacement heifers, weaned replacement heifers, if you first calve them out as 3-year-olds. If you're calving out as 2-year-olds, you'll never have any H0s. That's an extra year of development.
Okay.
And do you guys calve at 3 years old, Aubrey?
We breed our 15 to 18-month-old calves.
Okay. So you're calving as 2-year-olds. So you won't, you also won't have H0s.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then kind of moving on, what do you plan to do with your open or dry cattle, your mature cows, your H2s, your H1s? Are you going to sell them all? Are you going to keep them all? Are you going to sell a percentage, keep a percentage? You just tell us what you plan to do. And then moving down to the purchases page, when do you plan to buy the different classes of cattle? What do you expect to pay? And you can enter how many number if you would like. Notice you don't have to do that for bulls because the program is going to maintain your initial bull to cow ratio by purchasing bulls as necessary to keep that same ratio. And so then for purchases for different types of animals, if you're looking at purchasing stockers, you're going to, you'll tell us what do you expect to pay and how many you want to buy, and their weights as well. Next page has some other questions. This has to do with the timing of the purchase, because if you buy them at different times, they may or may not come with calves. So, those mature cows, are they being purchased looking forward before calving, or after calving and before weaning, or after weaning? So you just have to think about where you are in the cycle and when you would plan to buy those. And then also this next group of questions is asking, when you tell us that you're selling these animals at a certain time, a certain month, we need to know if that's this year or the following year. So that's what this question pertains to. Are these animals going to be held into the next year? Are they going to be sold within this current year? And then with regards to purchasing breeding females, are they confirmed pregnant or not? If they're confirmed pregnant, then they're pregnant and they're going to produce a calf. If they're not, then we're assuming that they're going to breed at the same rates as the rest of those breeding females, and they're not assured to be pregnant. Any other questions relevant right now?
Hayden has a similar question to Rick. He has a young herd and he isn't going to cull cows this year, not for a few years, but looking into the future. So both Rick and Caden will circle back to questions regarding updating your forecasts.
Great. Sales page, again, same expectations. When do you plan to sell your cull, dry, open cattle? When do you plan to sell your calves? When do you plan to sell your stockers? What month? What weight do you expect? What do you expect the price to be? And in both the sales and the purchases page, there's the local market price tool that links you from your initial location information, and it gives you up-to-date USDA reports on prices if you're in the US. If you're in Canada or Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, England, it will link you to local resources wherever you're at there.
Rick has a question. He said, is the percentage of heifers retained for breeding times H1 preg rate equal to bred heifers staying in the herd? I want to focus on actual heifers sold. I sell all open heifers after breeding and sell non-qualified heifers.
Yeah. Well, pretty much, there's going to be some death loss perhaps that you're noting. The model is going to take that into account. But yeah, the ones that aren't pregnant, you're going to be selling as open H1s if you want. And, you'll tell us what month and what weight and what price you expect to get in the sales page for your open H1s. Go ahead and unmute Rick just to make sure that's.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just trying to focus on it's a matter of timing because I've got when I bring 100 heifers in, if there are 10 that just are not going to be things I want to breed, I'm going to cull them in. I'm going to cull them in May. I'm going to AI the rest. I'm going to preg check them at 100 days. The opens all go to the feedlot. It's just a matter of get them in the right buckets. So
yes. Well, that's good. So, kind of what you're doing is deciding afterwards. So go back to the management page. You're, like this producer is saving 25% of his heifers for stockers, 23% for breeding animals. You're making that decision a little bit later, right? Basically, you're saving a bunch and you don't know which ones you're going to keep to feed out and which ones you're going to breed. Well, but you know about how many. You just don't know specifically which ones. You can just put that in here. If you're keeping half of your heifers and you're going to keep half of those for breeding replacements and half of those for stockers and make your decision later, you would just put 25%, 25%.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So for grazing, we're asking, are your livestock, are they grazing ranch-owned pasture or leased pasture? And, what percentage? We ask you this because we will automatically calculate for you your grazing costs. We need to know whether those are, from your own pasture, which is going to be a non-cash cost, or they're going to come from a lease. And then that's going to be a cash cost. So it just helps us to automatically calculate that for you. And then the cost of an animal unit month, we have a link here for you. If you're in the US, it makes it fairly easy, especially the Western US. USDA puts up a report for, current market price for a grazing unit month, animal unit month. Go ahead and go back. And then we just need a few more questions to ask to know how much grass these animals are going to eat. So are they large framed or medium framed? What's their milking ability considered? And all these more detailed descriptions are in the quick help. When does the breeding season begin? What's the average weights of these animals? Are they being provided supplemental feed during the year? And if so, how many months? We're assuming that that's being done at maintenance levels. If you have stockers, then you just identify what type they are. Are they medium frame steers, medium frame heifers, calves, mature thin cows, etc. Just whichever category best approximates what those animals are.
And Aubrey's clarifying their breeding season is when the bulls are put out. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So for inventory appraisal, the program is looking at true economic profit. That means we're taking into consideration.
Quick. Sorry, Larry just dropped a question there. What about 2 different breeding seasons?
Yeah. go ahead, go back to, why don't you go ahead and open like the enterprise or gross margin report. So the program will allow you to look at, you know, one cow-calf enterprise, one breeding enterprise, and up to 5 more stocker enterprises. So it doesn't really allow you to look at 2 different breeding enterprises if you have like 2 calving season, a fall season, and a spring season. But you could do that with the scenario tool. Maybe we'll look at later. You could enter that in the scenario tool.
But that would be kind of an account structure question, Larry. We can connect if you want. We base the tiers off of animals to kind of allow for that. So if you have 2 different breeding herds, you might need 2 smaller accounts rather than 1 large account. That's kind of how we structure that if people have multiple herds. Aubrey has a question. She said, yeah,
Yes,
so we're right now just filling out kind of your current plan. This is what you're doing right now. And then we can look at the scenario feature next, which is where you'll look at making changes.
So inventory appraisal. So we're taking into account all costs, not just cash costs. We're looking at non-cash costs as well. We're looking at opportunity costs. One of the opportunity costs is the cost of investment. You know, you have a financial investment in your livestock herd. The fact that, you know, it's placed there and not placed in some other investment portfolio means that's a true cost, and we need to consider it. So we're calculating that. We need to know what those animals are, the average value of each of those animals within the class to do that. So that's what this panel is for. And then here's the direct cost calculator. This automatically calculates all your grazing costs, which generally are your most significant costs. But also any other costs you might have, any other direct costs or variable costs you want to enter here. And the calculator makes it pretty easy. You can just, why don't we just add another expense here, Michaela, if you want, just to show them how.
So I pulled up one.
Okay.
Anytime you want to update, you just hit edit. You have to scroll over on that expense and then hit edit, but kind of simulate adding one here, adding some protein tubs and mineral. So this expense is added as a total. The user knows total expense and they want to allocate it over their breeding herd. You can choose cash or non-cash costs, and then you just hit add or update, and it will divide that expense up for the number of animals if you choose total. You can also do a per head expense. So something like a vaccine where you know the per head amount, maybe it's $250, choose per head, select the animal class that it's for. So it could be for total breeding herd, total breeding females, or any individual class. Select the class and then hit add. It'll save that. The final type of direct or cash cost would be a lease, which we kind of briefly touched on, but it can allocate lease fees according to grazing. So you would enter the total lease cost. If under grazing, your input was that you're not fully grazing ranch-owned pasture, you can add a lease, add the total lease cost, select lease fees, and then these 2 inputs are going to be locked because it's going to allocate that lease according to how much grass each class of animal eats. So that's the final cash cost. You can also do non-cash costs. Those would be things like ranch raised feed. And as Dr. Brazil mentioned, the largest is grazing non-cash costs, grazing ranch owned pasture, which we're going to automatically calculate for you. But you might also have ranch raised hay, ranch raised feed. You can add that as a non-cash cost here. Any questions on that, how to use that calculator?
So we're getting, you know, near the end of all the input panels. Most of the reports are already available for you. Here's one additional one where you can take into considerations your expectations for different markets, for the cattle market, for the sheep or wool or mohair or goat market. You also can put in your expectations for inflation, and it's going to take that into consideration in the long-term projection. Also, your opportunity interest rate that you identify. And we have links here in the quick help to help you kind of know what, for example, the inflation rate is, wherever, this is in Canada right now, or wherever you might be. Also, the opportunity interest rate, we give you a link to a 7-year treasury bill, which is kind of a good benchmark for that for a lot of people. Additional costs and income, the next one, these are just a few more things just to look at a comprehensive view of the ranch. So if you have any outstanding loans, you can enter those here. If you want to make any capital purchases, you can do that here in the years ahead. Maybe you want to buy a tractor or put in virtual fencing or buy some a squeeze chute or some working equipment. You would enter that here. It's going to automatically depreciate it for you, and it's going to incorporate that into your long-term outlook. If there's any other non-grazing enterprises, in addition to you already have your grazing enterprises, but you might have a number of non-grazing enterprises. Maybe you put up hay, maybe you have a hunting club, maybe you have events, maybe you have honeybees, chickens, all kinds of things. You would enter those enterprises here, and it's going to incorporate that into the overall big picture. And then, if you have outstanding receivables, you would enter those as well. Outstanding payables, and different overhead costs. Here's the last one where you just put in your assets, your current assets, and which would be like cash, checking, savings accounts, investments. And then non-current assets, land, buildings, vehicles, equipment, things like that. And then also any current depreciation expenses that you have for, past capital purchases. And that's everything. Those are all the inputs.
Only those.
Only those, yeah. So, definitely want to open it up for questions. Let's get to maybe Rick's first question. And Caden's is kind of a similar thing. So, the program is giving you a 5-year view into the future. Why don't you open a bunch of these, a bunch of the reports, if you would. It's giving you a 5-year view looking forward. You're going to, if you think, okay, I'm going to have the maximum number of cattle on year 3, you're going to have to anticipate making a change in year 3. To make a more detailed 5-year plan, we would have to ask you what you're doing in all of these things each and every year. But we're kind of showing you where the plane's going, and you're going to have to recognize, okay, when I get to this point, my grazing, demands are about all I'm going to be able to carry. So I'm going to be fully stocked. And in year 3 or in year 4, I'm going to make a change. Maybe I won't keep as many heifers or purchase as many breeding females or do something differently. But it's like flying the plane. You recognize, at some point you're going to maybe need to take a left turn or a right turn, but this is showing you where you're going, big picture moving forward.
And we're working on an update right now, which will hopefully help with this. Just the check-in points at which times you need to come back and update your scenario. So Caden, for example, if you're looking at a multi-year forecast, we're going to try and create checkpoints and check-in points where we'll prompt you to come back in and then make your updates, because it really isn't a set it and forget it. It's a management tool, and you're going to have to come back in at those points, as Dr. Brazil mentioned, when you do hit your capacity, and update your plan.
Any other questions? I kind of want to maybe we should unmute everybody and kind of want to hear what questions you guys have.
Just sent a request for everybody to unmute. But real quick, Caden and Rick, does that answer your question on your 5-year forecast?
Yeah, it does for me, for sure.
Okay, good.
And maybe you could look at a different scenario too, right? You could run a different analysis and see what it would look like if I did start culling things.
Right.
You could do it that way too, couldn't you?
Yeah. Well, and why don't you open the scenario feature and just kind of show how that works? So, this allows you to compare what you're currently doing with a new plan, and then to see the difference in profit, difference in cash flow, difference in, everything. It's still not going to, this won't allow you to change in year 3. Okay. But you can change what you're currently doing to make a better plan. And you can play with that and then compare.
Now, Aubrey, this is what you had been asking about earlier. This is where you would make those changes to see if a different management course is what you wanted to go with.
And if you have an example of something you're wanting to look at, Aubrey, we can try and run through that. If not, we had talked about maybe inputting a stock or enterprise and then creating a scenario to potentially improve or just evaluate a management change. So we might do that if no one has a scenario they're trying to figure out how to input.
Yeah, definitely want to open it up for things that you guys have been thinking about. Management changes you're considering, things that you would like to look at. We can look at it on here. We could also look at it on your account as well. But
I was wondering, I've been going through my expenses and I've been trying to kind of double check them and update them. And I was just wondering if you could just go through that real quick, like just pick an expense and then just show how you could get back into it.
Sure. Yeah. So right here, for example, let's choose one that's allocated. Here's a lease. So you need to scroll all the way over to the right and then hit edit and say the amount of the lease changed. It's going to be less than you thought. Just update it right there and then hit update and it'll regenerate everything. Does that answer your question?
How are you scrolling all the way across? Are you like trying to highlight that whole bar basically?
Or you can either highlight like I did, or you can just use the bar at the bottom and pull like that. Do you see
Right, that's what I was doing, but I was having a hard time like some of the upper ones that weren't on the screen. You had to go down and then over and then back up. It was kind of
Yeah. No, so that's the best way to do it right now, but that's great feedback. If you've got a lot of expenses in there, maybe we can look at locking, kind of like in Excel, you could lock a row so that you can see what you're working with a little better.
But how did you do it that first time? You just scrolled
I
across.
highlighted it like this and then just pulled over on the side with my mouse. Is that
okay?
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
that would help.
Yep, that helps a lot.
Okay, cool.
Right there, you were
Yeah,
scenario.
Oh, go ahead, Aubrey.
Right there, you were changing it in scenario 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be particular, if your lease is changed, do you want to change it in your original one, or do you?
Yes. Well, yeah. If you're looking at a scenario where your lease changed, then you'd want to be in that scenario. But if you want to change your current plan, definitely, because these are going to be completely independent. Once you copy them and duplicate it, any changes you make aren't going to be reflected in current plan.
Okay.
Yeah, great note.
I don't know if anybody has something to do. I'm not super set up in mine yet, but we are interested in purchasing 100 bred heifers. So
Great, let's do that.
Well, let's do that. Okay. Are they going to be like mature cows, bred heifers? What are they going to be?
I need to do something on purchases and inventory.
Well, I would know if you want to do a one-time purchase, you would just add it to inventory, and then you would, basically it's an exchange of assets. So then you would either decrease, your current assets, or you'd take out a loan. If you want to do it each and every year, then you would do it in purchases. Purchases, that's going to be a repetitive thing that's going to happen every year. So which did you want to do? What are you thinking?
It would be a one-time this year.
Okay. So we'd go to inventory, and these are going to be bred animals or open, or what do you?
Bred heifers, 2 to 5 year olds.
Okay. So why don't we, these are breeding animals, not stockers. So right. Go to page 1. So, if they're, mature cows are going to be like, 4-year-olds and older. So what are you going to be, H2s or mature cows?
Let's do H2s.
Okay. So we're going to make 133. You're probably going to purchase more bulls, right? To keep a same bull to cow ratio. Now you got 200 and 63 breeding animals, right? You have 10 bulls. Before, so you're probably going to want to buy about 5 more bulls or so, something like that.
Sure, yeah.
So go ahead and add 5 to your bull total, whatever you think you might need. And then you're going to buy them. What do you plan to pay for those bred heifers?
4,000.
Okay. So
Real quick, Dr. Brazil, and I apologize because I thought we were looking at stalkers. If we're going to modify the breeding herd, we should do it in a scenario. I thought we were going to look at adding stalkers and that we could then run that through. So do you want me to create a scenario and put that in?
Sure.
Okay.
And so you're going to buy 5 bulls. Do you know what you're paying for bulls right now or expect to pay?
I don't know for sure. Let's say 6,000. My husband's gutting a deer right now, so.
Me last week. So 5 bulls at 6,000 is $30,000, and 100 bred H2s at 4,000 is 400,000. So that's $430,000. Okay. And so go down to additional costs and income. And do you plan to take out a loan, or you have that much?
Let's do the loan scenario.
Okay. Yeah. So enter a loan, we'll say H2 purchase. Yep. And $430,000. When do you want to pay it off?
4 years. 6.
Okay.
Sorry.
Which one?
6.
Okay. And any idea of the interest rate you might get?
6.5.
Okay. And then go ahead and add it, and that's it. And now go ahead and compare our current situation. Let's look at our grazing demands right now. Our grazing demands have gone up, right? Because we just purchased a bunch of cows. Increased 1,700 grazing unit months about per each year. Let's look at our profit and loss. We're assuming you have that much grass to feed them, I guess. And so now this is taking into account the loan repayment, your interest costs, everything, so that loan repayment is impacting your cash flow. The interest costs are impacting your profit and loss. So let's look at year one more time. What was it starting at? 374 to now what? That's almost $100,000 increase in profit if you were to do that, and if you have the grass for that. What's it doing on year 5? 354 to 3, so it's a $50,000 increase by year 5, according to all the inputs that we have here.
So that being the hay that we have to purchase for each winter? It's
your direct costs, per H2, they're already incorporated here. So everything that you're spending on your H2s, those direct costs are going to be spent on each of these additional 100 cows, H2s. All the grass that they're going to eat, it's already incorporated into that. So beyond cost, your profit is going to increase that much.
Am I doing market predictions for sale prices?
Yeah, well, and what we've already entered here for what we expect those calves to weigh and to and when you're planning to sell them, and the price per pound for your heifer and steer calves, also for your cull animals, your cull H2s, your open, dry, what have you. We've already put in our expectations there. And, these aren't, of course, your numbers, right? These are those numbers. You can see this assessment is looking at the cattle market falling 5% a year.
Okay.
Why don't you go change it? What if it goes up 5% a year? Now let's look at the profit and loss difference. Okay, so now it really continues to grow. That was why it was decreasing in year 5, because that's a 5% compounded for 5 years. It's a pretty big hit in 5 years. So anyway, all that to say, you can play with any of that. So you can, if you want to look at a one-time purchase, you do it that way. If you want to look at just, maybe purchasing 10 heifers every year for the next 5 years, you would enter it here in purchases.
And that profit and loss is cash flow.
It's true change in your financial position. So it's incorporating not just cash, but also changes in the value of inventory, true accrual accounting, looking at all opportunity costs, all cash and non-cash costs. The cash flow situation is different. Why don't we look at the cash flow? And this, just why don't we do the annual cash flow? Just a little more clear. So this is what your cash flow situation is going to go from that which is on the left to this is what's on the right. Look at the left here. Just go more slowly. So before it was going to be 752 in and what's out 295. So it's about 450, 456 or something. Positive cash flow. Now what's it going to be in year one? 897, almost 900. So yeah, over a $500,000 positive cash flow in year one. Again, that's taking into account repaying your loan in those 6 years, I guess we said, taking into account the interest payments and everything.
Yeah.
Does the response on the direct cost make sense, Aubrey, for the additional hay and everything?
Yeah, why don't you go to year one profit and loss, because it's going to show you the increased direct cost comparison.
So since you entered everything on a per head basis, if you increase the number of animals, then your total direct costs are going to increase proportionately. You can see that here. If it's a new cost, like associated with a new enterprise, you'd want to make sure to add it in this scenario. But if it's just, increasing the number of animals and your costs are going to stay the same, it'll automatically factor that in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Aubrey? Mm-hmm.
Great question.
Any other questions, on this or something different or something you guys wanted to look at?
I just put this in the chat, but with all of the news in the cattle markets the last few weeks and how up and down it's been, I'm curious if any of you guys have started changing the way you're thinking about your management plan for the year ahead, maybe retaining more, selling more, starting a stock or enterprise, something like that. Anything that anybody's kind of kicking around?
No.
It's
important assessing
unfazed.
all opportunities, really.
Yes, sir.
I think it's that kind of a market right now where you just have to look for opportunities and seize them and take what's here right now, because there's as much predictive stuff on the upside, on the downside, as there is the upside. I just have a personal thing that I tell everybody with cattle, because I'm a relative newbie to it, and we're starting our 5th year, and I just say, like, how do you look at cattle and not look at gold is $4,000 an ounce? I think that's just a whole, and I know everybody thinks, well, what does that have to do with cattle? Well, it has to do with money. And so I just don't think you can see the cattle market deteriorate significantly while gold is still up around $4,000. I don't think that, I think cattle pricing is going to be up for a long time. And that's goes past the herd size, and I'm speaking specifically the United States. I think even if the herd comes back, I think we're in a whole new world as far as, financial basis.
Mm-hmm.
And if gold goes back under $2,000 an ounce, yeah, then maybe we'll be looking at things differently. But I would just keep an eye on that part of it. If I was everybody,
Yeah.
I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just
Sound
saying.
like one. That was pretty good.
Yeah,
analysis.
listen, when you're as old as me, you've seen a lot, and I've tracked a lot of commodities over the years, and just start really looking at cattle since I kind of went sideways into the business. So here I am trying to figure a lot of things out. So it's just my humble opinion, by the way. Don't take that as anything more than that, please.
That's good stuff. What else we got? Do we have any other questions in the
Aubrey
chat?
had another question. So she asked if she could do a scenario on leasing a new section, increase the cost by 8,000 for the lease, and then add the additional cost for animals to stock it, and look at leasing versus purchasing.
Yeah. So why don't we go to, look at the grazing demands report first, right? Because you're considering a new lease. This is telling you what you're currently grazing. Okay, this ranch right now, if this were yours, it's 4,350 or so grazing unit months. If you're looking at acquiring additional grazing land, then you might want to think, okay, about compared to this, about how much more am I adding? So let's just say it's a quarter as much, right? So say it's about another 1,000 grazing unit months. So it'll take you to 53.5. Then you would say, okay, the lease is going to cost me. So go ahead and take out this lease, go to direct costs and add a lease for, whatever that would be, $8,000. It's a lease fee, and we just add that. But now we have, our expectation is that we can use another 1,000 grazing unit months. Okay, so what's our best alternative for doing that? So go to the enterprise efficiency report, and we see that our retained steer stockers are returning, $169 per grazing unit month, per unit of grass. So it would be good, ideal to increase these. So let's go and look what we're doing right now. And for management, look under management. So right now we're keeping 10%. What if we kept 100%? See how much grass it's going to use. So just go up to 100%.
Do you want this in a scenario? Because she was asking about comparing lease versus purchase. So I was modifying current plan, which is how you would do it. You would add the lease, and then you're going to look at,
I thought you were in the new scenario.
No, I was going to look at her question, which was, I think she's asking about that purchase we were talking about, the 100 H2s lease versus purchase them, right? Is that, Aubrey, is that kind of what you're trying to get at?
No, I was doing a second scenario where option to lease.
So Michaela, why don't you create a new scenario, a third one, and go ahead, Aubrey. What's your question?
So we would lease a section, and then we need to buy 30 head to fill that.
30 head of H2s, or
yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So you've entered that, and then you're going to purchase 30 head.
Yeah.
Okay. So add that, make that 63, and just purchase one bull. So at 4,000, so 120,000 plus 6, so $126,000. And go ahead and take out a different loan for $126,000. Same terms, Aubrey? Yeah. Okay. What do we say, 6.5? Okay. And now we've added the lease. You're saying take out the lease to see if that's profitable, to take out a lease to do more?
Well, so in that scenario, if we get that new section,
Yes.
would it be more beneficial to lease cows for a period or purchase our own? I mean, we're getting pretty granular.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So lease cows, you're talking about getting paid for grazing?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So, that would be, if you're getting paid for grazing, that's another stalker enterprise.
Okay.
And so the best way to do that would be to just enter those numbers for those stalkers.
Is there anything that we shouldn't edit? Like, I guess I just would be concerned that I would get out into scenarios and things, and then how do I get back to what I actually have?
Yeah. Okay. So great question. There's a compare feature, and it compares and it shows you all the things you've changed.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. I'll show you later, but there's a compare feature that shows you all the variables you've changed in case you've forgotten. Okay.
Back to reality, what I have right now. Okay.
Yeah. Your current situation. Okay. So you added a new lease.
And then they want to just look at what would be more profitable, the grazing lease or purchasing more of those heifers.
Yeah. So the way to look at that, go back to enterprise efficiency, and then you should check here which is your most efficient enterprise, because that's an additional enterprise, and it's going to tell you, what the return per unit of grass is going to be. Okay. And now you can directly compare your enterprises, and then you say, okay, I'm going to maybe lease this ground and get so many grazing units. What's the best way to employ that? Let's look at leasing out that grass. So go to inventory. Are you paying for death loss or no?
No.
Okay, so put 0. And then when do you get those animals?
Let's do June.
In June? How many?
30.
Okay, 30. And what are they going to weigh?
800 pounds.
800 pounds. And you're not paying anything because you don't own them, right?
Right.
Okay, so go next. When are you going to sell them? November? Okay. So say yes for acquired stalker 3. Okay, save. And then you're selling them. What weight will they be when they leave?
Let's do 1,200 pounds.
Okay. And what are you getting paid for them?
$275.
You're getting paid a lease fee, right?
Oh, this is for the lease scenario.
Yeah. In the lease scenario. Yeah, you're getting paid what?
Like, let's say $35 a head per month.
Per month. Okay, so we said we got him in June to November, 5 months times 35, so it's 175. So you're gonna get paid $175. 1,200 pounds divided by 175. Divided by 1,200. You're gonna get paid 14.6 cents per pound. And go to grazing. What are they? Heifers or something?
Yeah. Yep. Medium frame.
Okay. And you're not supplemental feeding them at all?
Right.
Okay. Inventory appraisal, it's going to be 0 because you don't own them. You're not having an opportunity cost. Any cost that you pay there, are you providing salt or anything?
Sure. Some salt, some mineral.
Okay. Any idea of what that's costing you?
Let's do $500.
So add total expense and it'll calculate it out. Okay. I think that's everything. And now let's look at enterprise efficiency for acquired stalker 3. So you're making $3.94 in year 1. And remember, we're anticipating a 5% drop in the market each year. So that's why it's dropping. So that's not a very good enterprise as compared to some of your others, right?
That's per head?
That's per grazing unit month, per animal unit month.
Okay.
So you see how that's not very good compared to those other alternatives, right? So
Including the
are you
cost,
in?
the lease cost was applied to just these acquired stalkers 3?
Well, it doesn't work that way because you can't say, okay, these cows are eating this grass and these other cows are eating that grass, and those cows are eating the expensive grass and the others are eating the cheap grass. They're all kind of eating grass. So it's distributed, you could use it one way or the other.
For all the enterprises.
Yeah. So
that's good stuff.
Yeah, so let's go make a plan here. Okay, so let's make a new scenario and let's do things differently. And look at how much grass we're eating right now. What is it? It's 4,562. Okay. Now, if we look at our enterprises, we see some are better than others. Those acquired Stalker 3 aren't very good, so let's quit purchasing those. Let's quit taking those on. And yeah, put that at 0. Acquired Stalker 3. Acquired Stalker 3 purchases, 0. Okay. And let's use that grass. You said the best way would be to retain more steer stalkers for this ranch. Okay. But, if you wanted to do that, let's just go ahead and go to management. And let's say 30% of our steers, and we'll see where that takes us to.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I'm going to see your receipt.
Wow. Yeah, so pretty, still under a little bit. So let's take 35%.
Let me log back in. Usually people don't, bring all their stuff.
We could maybe feed about almost 35. Use that same amount of grass. Yeah, even more. Let's say 38.
Oh, because there's physical damage. No, I know exactly. That's why we just can't get back to the position.
It's still under, but pretty close. Now let's compare our profit and loss. So that made us $30,000 more a year doing it that way versus the other way.
Yeah, I know.
So what you want to do is run the scenario and then identify which are your best enterprises, and then use the grass, as much as possible with your best enterprises.
Right.
But you can test that out. You can test out almost anything. But, the scenario, the numbers we just ran showed that leasing of grass wasn't very profitable. Right. By the way, before we do that, let's kind of show her that feature where you can compare, you can see the changes. So here's all the things you changed. We changed from, 10 to 38% of our steers being kept. We stopped purchasing those acquired stalker ones. The cash costs, those changes are just because of the numbers change.
Okay.
So, and if you want to go back to your original one, go ahead and click on current plan. So you just go to current plan. It takes you back to that original ranch. Pardon?
Did I add a lease cost on here? So I would need to go in and delete that to go back to what I actually.
Yeah. Was that not on the other one?
No, it's on both of them.
Okay. So we were taking out a new lease and then figuring out the best way to use that.
Right.
You can always also make a note in your new scenario too, to remind yourself what you did in that scenario. There's a feature to add a note as well. So you could say experimenting with new lease. Guys, we're over an hour, so if anyone has to go, totally understand. Any other questions we can wrap up for you guys before we sign off here? Anything anyone wants to go over as they're looking through their program, or maybe a term you want clarified? Anything at all?
I just have a question on that lease scenario we're talking about. So if you had a lease ground scenario, but then you had capital costs, fencing, gates, that aspect, is there a way to input that into a scenario like that?
Yeah. You would input that in. Go to the scenario. You would input that as a capital purchase. It would just be, I'm going to, fencing costs. I'm going to do this in year 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. It's going to cost me so much. It's going to have a useful life of whatever and a salvage value. And it will, then calculate the depreciation and incorporate that.
Awesome. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty handy for checking out something like that. I just had a question. I could add the least cost to my scenario 1 and not, yes, you could do that. You would just have to do it in your next scenario 2. You'd have to do the same thing in any other scenario you built if you want to contrast different uses of your lease. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can do anything different in your scenario, however you want to look at it.
Great question. Glad we went over that. I'm going to drop in our Facebook group. If you guys aren't a member, please join there. Just want to make that more of a resource. How many scenarios can we do at a time?
2 in addition to your current plan.
And then you can always save this, download your reports, take a screenshot, so you can remember. So just make sure you join there, guys, because I do want to make sure that's a resource. If you have questions, you can always drop them there. You can email us. There's all kinds of ways to stay in touch because we want to make sure you have all the support that you need. Anything you want to go over quickly?
I'm liking your vet videos on the Facebook page when you did the checking the horse's teeth and the epidural. Those I like those. Those are handy. You should keep doing those.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
I'll keep twisting his arm. We need that support so he cooperates with our video efforts. So thank you, Joshua. Trying not to get flagged by Facebook for some of the procedures he wants to show. Anything else? Have you guys been able to use the program this month? Hopefully, as the weather gets a little colder, more folks are spending time inside at the computer. So please do send us those questions. This is a good time of year to plan as the weather's bad outside. Like to use software while the sun doesn't shine. And if you have a thought on how this meeting could be better for you, how it could be more useful, let me know. There's not really a lot of opportunities for ranchers to kind of meet up and talk about these things. So we want to fill that need too. So if there's anything we can do to improve and serve you guys, send us an email. Let us know. That's what we're here for. But in the meantime, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you all so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Or next month, rather.